You're listening to Runions Have Layers, the podcast where two siblings explore the many layers of life and mental wellness, where vulnerability meets strength and where every shared story is a step towards self-discovery. Join us as we uncover the richness of our experiences and find empowerment in every layer. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the science of habits and how to create lasting change. Basically, our lives are a series of habits. Some are good and some are bad. And all of these habits shape our health, our productivity, and really our overall happiness. So, we wanted to kind of get into the nitty gritty of what habits are and how they are formed and how we can change them to benefit us in the long run. So, a habit is a routine or behavior that's performed regularly. Sometimes it's consciously, sometimes it's unconsciously. And then, often it happens automatically. And some examples are positive habits might include exercising regularly or reading before bed. And, some maybe not so good habits could be things like smoking or excessive screen time.
What are some, now that we're into the new year, what are some habits that you're hoping to change this year?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't normally do resolutions, which I know that's not exactly what this is, but I want to get healthier as like an overall goal, eat healthier, start exercising, not really to lose weight, but to, build muscle and just stay healthy as I'm getting older. I want to take care of my body. So that's something that I have a really hard time with, not because I don't feel like it's important, but I just have a lot of issues with food and controlling food intake and restricting and stuff like that. And that's not what my goal is, but that always comes up when I want to change my eating or start exercising. I get into that really obsessive mode that I used to be in years ago. But
Yeah.
now that I'm healthier emotionally, mentally, all of that, I really, that is my goal. I want my body to be strong and healthy, and I want to be here for as long as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my main goal. What about you?
Yeah, same. I have been working on being more healthier in general, and I feel like I've done that a lot since Dad died because of his health issues, and
Mm-hmm.
I noticed and saw how much health really affected that, and how that was passed down in our upbringing, and how we treated food, how we looked at food. We didn't really. I didn't. I don't feel like we were very mindful of food and thinking about mindfulness in that context. And also, we weren't really like today. We're a lot more aware of what's going into food and how foods are made and what really affects us. But we didn't really have that consciousness, or we weren't really super hyper focused on it like we are now. When we were coming up with, like, MSG and high fat, high carbs, like that was sort of starting to trend, but it wasn't trending like it is now, where people aren't as aware. And social media has absolutely contributed to people being more aware and actually being able to pass information to much further places. But what I'm trying to say is that we weren't taught the ins and outs of how to be healthy. Like, our parents weren't healthy, our grandparents weren't healthy, and I felt like I grew up in a culture of just not really knowing and how to be healthy. And so once I was an adult and I picked up on a lot of that stuff and then did more research on my own, I started to learn how to make healthy meals and what was important, what macronutrients were, and all that sort of stuff. But for me, I've been doing that for a little bit, but I want to take it a step further, and I'm trying to build a more healthy habit as well, of like trying to be consistent of doing the habits, because I've done the workout thing, and I've done the prepping and all that sort of stuff, and it's so easy to start that and be really passionate about it, but then it starts to drop off. And I think that is really the challenge when it comes to creating habits: is how do you create a habit and keep it going? That's really, I think, the hardest thing. But I was going to ask you, actually, like, so being healthy, like, that's part of your, like, something you are wanting to work towards. that's sort of like a macro goal of like, I want to be healthy, which is great. But like, what do you think are smaller incremental things that you can put into place that will help you achieve that like kind of broader goal?
Well, I mentioned eating healthier and starting to exercise. And I think those are two smaller things. Like it doesn't have to be an hour workout every single day.
Hmm.
It can be walking on the treadmill for 5 or 10 minutes. Like
Yep.
just getting used to those small habits that to start to build into bigger habits. So that, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. I don't have like a detailed plan of this is what I'm going to eat and these are the meals I'm going to
Hmm.
make. It's just more adding healthier choices to what
Yeah.
I'm already doing. And when you were talking, that reminded me of, you're right. We weren't really brought up knowing what was healthy or what wasn't healthy. I mean, sugar and all of that. Not that I intend to talk only about food, about habits, but the habits are formed unconsciously because, we ate what our parents could afford to buy. And a
Yeah.
lot of people, even these days, with the economy the way it is, can't afford super healthy foods. And we're talking about more habits than just eating. But, you know, I think that that's ingrained in us and we don't even realize until we're an adult and we're like, why do I always eat this way? Or why have I,
Hmm.
um, because at growing up, that's how we ate.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think it comes back to, I mean, we formed a habit from that, like
Hmm.
whenever, like, talking about a little bit more about like what habits are, like every habit operates on, it's called a power, it's like a loop. And there's a cue and there's a routine and there's a reward. And it's like, what were the cues that caused us to go for whatever snack it was or whatever, and then that caused a routine for us. Like every time we had this particular, it's like Pavlov's dog, when the bell
Hmm.
rings, they go eat. It's like the same thing, when you're stressed or whenever you're tired or whenever you're alone or sad or whatever, what is the cue? And you get into that routine, and then you know sometimes you feel good, sometimes you don't feel good. So I think it's important to investigate what that is. If there is a habit that you want to change, what is it that causes us to go get a hamburger from McDonald's, or
Hmm.
to eat ice cream or whatever that is. And I'm trying to not use a food habit, but like to go to sleep late, staying up super late. I'm a night owl and I stay up sometimes till 2, 3 a.m. And it's not because I probably couldn't go to sleep, but my mind just is constantly on and racing. And I also work a non-traditional schedule, so I don't have to get up early. So I don't know if it's me not having to get up early. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to stay up late because I can. But it's doing that. It's maybe like waiting until the last second to get ready before you have to go to work, drinking coffee or not drinking coffee, smoking or not smoking. Like, what are the things that whenever you feel a certain way or something happens that you've formed this routine to go pick up whatever that thing is or to do whatever that activity is. I think it's important to investigate what that is, and once we start to take a look at that, then I think we can start to see how we can change the habits and kind of change what we are doing.
I was thinking about other habits because they are so unconscious that things that I just do. I really had to think, okay, what are habits that I might want to form more positive habits, and things like that would be taking supplements every day. I always forget, or when
Hmm.
I do
Yeah.
laundry, to put it away immediately or hang it up immediately instead of just, those are habits that we get into over time just because either they're easy or whatever the situation is. But those types of things too are things that we do without even thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm terrible at biting my nails. That's like a really bad habit that I have tried to change for so many years. And I still haven't been able to successfully stop biting my nails. But that there's certain points, like for a couple weeks, where I have some nails and I'm like, oh wow, like they don't look very nice, but I have nails and they're not like super short. And I've been trying to consciously stop doing that. And I haven't really found out like what I need to do. And I haven't put too much effort towards it. But sometimes when I think when I'm biting my nails, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this. And,
Mhm.
but I think I think for me, it comes down to like whenever if there's something you want to do, you have to kind of change the way you think about it. So like laundry, for example, if you want to start folding your laundry and putting it away, and as soon as it happens, when like when the dryer goes off, maybe you set a timer for 5 minutes and you're like, okay, when this timer goes off, I need to put away the laundry. You give yourself some permission to not do it, I guess. um and then when it happens, you just have to say no, I have to do this. It's something I want to do. And I think the more that you kind of force yourself to like do something and push yourself outside your comfort zone to be like, this is not something I'm used to, because it's going to feel weird. Like it's going to be something you probably don't want to do or that you don't enjoy if you're changing your habit. So I think if that's something you want to do, then you have to force yourself. Okay, I'm going to put away my laundry. As much as I despise putting away laundry, I'm going to do this because that's a habit I want to change. And then after you do that for X amount of days and you start doing it, it becomes less painful, becomes less like, oh, I can't believe I have to do this. It just, you start to get into the routine of it. And
Yeah, that
maybe you give yourself a reward, like after you put away your laundry, maybe I don't know, you get a basket of strawberries or something. I don't know, whatever it is, whatever you want to enjoy, um, and splurge a little bit on yourself and be like, I'm going to give myself a reward, or I'm going to, I don't know, fill in the blank. Everyone has their own little thing that is going to reward them for that.
right. Yeah, and that's really a perfect segue because I wanted to talk about first of all how to identify the habits that you want to change and then what to do to be able to change them. And first, like we talked about, sometimes you're not even aware of what those habits are. So becoming aware of all of the little things that you do unconsciously, or if there is something specific that you do on a regular basis, kind of keeping a track of those. It could be a mental note, it could be on your phone, it could be a written journal of what you do and what you'd like to change. That's really the first step, is identifying those behaviors and those habits that have become a regular routine for you. And so to break the habit, after you've identified it, disrupt that habit loop that you were talking about and change the cue or the negative association that goes along with that. And it's I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's hard to just stop cold turkey any kind of habit. So like I was talking about, is adding something positive instead of just taking away the negative, to replace that action with something else. And that makes the change more sustainable, something that you can stick with long term.
Yeah, I agree. And I wanted to bring up a really good book that goes along with this that I've read. The It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I think I mentioned it to you, and you said that you were it was on your list for reading.
Mhm.
But it's something he talks about, and there's a specific example I remember. There's a story of this guy who wants to change his habit, and he wants to start going to the gym and being sort of going back to being healthy. And he tells himself, okay, I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna stay there for 5 minutes. And once he went in and he was there and he got on the treadmill and he was there for 5 minutes and he left. And which sounds silly because it takes so much work to get to the driving, traffic, whatever, but he did that for like 2 weeks, and he just went and he stayed for 5 minutes, and that was it. And he's like, I'm not gonna try to get myself to do this grand thing that I know I'm not gonna be able to do, so I'm just gonna commit to 5 minutes. And he did that, and he said, you know what, like I can do, I can do 10 minutes. So he started staying for 10 minutes, to where he got up to like 30 minutes, and over a couple of months. And what I want to bring up is that most of the time, at least I'll speak for myself, when I set goals, I think of, oh, I want to do this thing that I want to accomplish, and I probably won't be able to accomplish it for like 6 months or a year, or maybe it'll be a long-term goal. And I start thinking about, oh, how can I get there right now? And I think it's important to set up like incremental. That's why I asked you like early at the beginning, like what are things that you are, how can you achieve the goal that you want to achieve in smaller steps? Because if we start treating the goal as an end in itself rather than means to an end, then we're not going to be as successful in accomplishing the goals. So it's like, okay, I want to stop eating. All right, let's just stick with laundry. I want to start doing my laundry. And so it's like, what little steps can you put into place, or what can you start to identify? Is it the time you're doing laundry? Is it the amount of laundry you're doing? Like, what is it about the laundry that you don't like? And what small little changes can you make that are not going to change everything, but that are a step towards what you want to achieve? So if maybe it's the amount of laundry, maybe do smaller loads. That way you don't have to put up as much laundry. Maybe it takes you 10 minutes to put up instead of 30 minutes. So it's like,
Mhm.
how do you negotiate the things in your overall daily routine that will help you take a step in the right direction towards achieving like a better overall routine in maybe 6 months? And it's like the daily things that are going to get you there.
Yeah, that made me think of keeping my car clean. I used to have like a super messy car, and I got a new vehicle a few years ago, and I really wanted to intentionally, be intentional about not having trash everywhere. And
Hmm.
so every time I had a drink or something, and it was empty when I got out of the car, I would take it and throw it away. And that became a habit, and my car stayed clean. And somehow, somewhere, I stopped. And my car isn't as messy as it was, but it's like when you take that one thing out and throw it away, you don't have to clean out your entire car at one
Exactly.
time. And it's like that's the procrastination, because I see it's a bigger job, and so I don't really want to do it. And so that's something that I want to get back into the habit of, because it's nice getting in your car. And I mean, it's not like detailed all the time. It still needs to be
Yeah.
vacuumed and all of that. But
Right.
in terms of like water bottles and, old coffee cups and all that kind of stuff, you know, getting in the habit of doing that every single time, because it is
Yeah.
such a small task. It doesn't take that long to bring it in with you and dump it out and throw it away.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's those small gestures that start to add up over time. And when you look at habits, it's the same way. If you want to change something, you have to start with the smaller pieces first. It's like throwing away that one piece of trash. If you use that as an analogy for how to grow a better habit, it's like, yeah, it doesn't seem like a big thing, but after a while, all that trash can start to collect, and then all of a sudden you have this huge mess you have to clean up. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so it's like, how can we change our habits with the smaller pieces of our daily routine overall? So that's what I think is uh, has helped me, especially since I became more aware of that. I've started to focus and break my goals down a little bit more, to where I'm not so focused on like, okay, I have to reach this goal in a certain amount of time, or it needs to be done like now or next week. It's like, okay, I have to give myself some, like, take the pressure off myself and give myself some grace. What sort of rewards are like in line with creating a new habit? Like, what are things that you reward yourself with if you are changing habits? Do you have anything that you kind of gravitate towards, or things that you've used in the past maybe whenever you wanted to change a habit?
Yeah, I really like getting massages. So that's something that, I haven't done that as a reward in a while, but that is something that I have done in the past. Or for me, and this kind of goes back to what you were talking about with the laundry. Something I learned years ago is, setting a timer to do certain things, but giving myself permission to stop when that timer goes off. Because to me, that's a reward. Okay,
Hmm.
this work is done. I'm able to stop. I can go sit down. Um, or get together with a good friend, or a lot of these things I can do anytime, but a lot of times they get put off because of day-to-day life. And so I like to make a special occasion out of those things and make it feel like a reward, because it does feel
Hmm.
good. Yes,
Yeah.
it's something I could do anytime, but being intentional about getting those chemicals to release in your brain, the dopamine and endorphins and all those things that help you to feel good.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I also, I feel like if there's something that I've been working on and I'm close to accomplishing, or I do accomplish it, I'll sort of treat myself in a way. I also would go get a massage. That's something I would do. Sometimes I've gone out to dinner and just treated myself with a nice dinner, or I'll buy myself like a really nice bottle of scotch or something like that's for me really rewarding. But I you said something about being intentional, and I think a really great way for anyone to be intentional, but something that I've used is like journaling and just taking a note of it. You mentioned also like taking a note on your phone or on a piece of paper or something, and tracking like habits that you first of all that you want to change, but also as you start to notice these things, like what are the cues that cause you to go towards that habit, or how many times did you change the habit? So, and there's habit trackers and all kinds of stuff like all over the place that you can check out. But I think that that has it's sort of a way to keep yourself accountable and to put pen to paper and say, you know what, I did this today, or I didn't do it today, and how do you get back on track so that you can keep yourself accountable with changing? Do you use anything like that, or do you keep a journal for that, or how do you keep track of the things that you're kind of to being intentional about?
I haven't created a tracker for creating s- certain habits. This is a yes and no question. I have or a yes and no answer. I have a tracker, but it's more for activities that help create those or release those happy chemicals in your brain. So watching something funny or um, sitting in front of my sun lamp or things like that, which are
Yeah.
still habits that have to be created, but I'm intentional about doing those things because they help me have more good days than bad in terms of mental and emotional health. And so that's something that I made a priority to do on a daily basis and to track because if I've had a bad week, I can look back and say, okay, well, what did I do or what didn't I do that I normally do? And that's not taking into account stressful situations or things that happen in life. Of course, that's going to affect how your day and your week goes and things like that. But those are the kind of things that I track, things that are going to help release the happy chemicals for me, so that I have a better day than I would if I didn't.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the external factors. That is not always about like us at home and doing things at home, is like the surroundings around us and society and our workplace and all of that can also influence our habits, the way that we maybe the way that we interact with people, or if there's a particular person that might put us in a certain mood and that affects
Mm-hmm.
a habit and that stresses us out and it makes us do a certain thing. So I think it's also an important thing to acknowledge about how things that are not in our control affect could possibly affect the habits that we start to form, and how do we change our response to that? How do we remove ourselves from a situation, or how do we learn about how we can de-escalate our own self and change our mood to not cause us to do like, so I'm thinking of smoking. People at work, they're like, oh, I'm so stressed out, I need a cigarette right now. I remember so many times serving, it was like we were in the middle of service and someone was like, oh, I need a cigarette so bad right now. and and they could, they're so stressed out. I mean, also it's addiction, but also like that addiction and habit started from something, from somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
feeling stressed or whatever. So I think that noticing what those external factors are as important as looking at yourself and saying, these are the things that I want to change about myself. But sometimes we do things that are caused by things that are outside our control.
Yeah. And something that I thought about, which I guess a lot of people don't realize. I didn't realize until I started actually being intentional about thinking about what I was thinking about, because a lot of times it can be a habit to be negative or to be
Yeah.
cynical or to and we don't even realize where that comes from or why we are that way, or that even is a habit for us. So self-awareness, I think, is a big piece in a lot of this because as we talked about, a lot of these things we just do automatically and we don't even think about it. We don't think about why. And so really that's where it starts is, as we talked about, identifying the habits that we want to change, or even positive habits, so that we can build on those too. This isn't just about
Changing. Yeah.
removing the negative, or the things that are more unhelpful to us. It's really about being able to add to the things that are more helpful and take away from the things that aren't as helpful for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, building on because we we all have positive habits as well. I think that's important too to that you said that if we can build and grow positive habits that we have. And because there might be people listening that they're like, I already do eat healthy, but like if you want to be, how can you be more healthy, or do you want to be more healthy? And if that's a goal of yours, how can you build on that? um and yeah, like the self-talk thing for sure is a big thing, because I'm sure we all know someone who is always negative about something. It's like it doesn't
Hmm.
matter what it is, what you say, there's always something negative. And uh yeah, it just makes me think of that if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all,
Hmm.
saying. And it's like, yeah, like maybe you, if you are that kind of person, like think about, maybe I should change the way I'm talking about situations. Maybe that will affect my mood and how I see things, and my perspective will be different. I'm like that sometimes too, where I kind of see things in a very cynical, negative, not negative, I would say very, um, like, how can I make this better? And in a way that I want to improve. And I see this a lot in my work, especially when I start a new job. I come in and I am analyzing everything, and I'm like, how can I make this better? And sometimes it has come off as like, you guys aren't doing it right, or I know a better way, or kind of like
Hmm.
condescending. And so I've had a lot of learning out of that, because that's not always my best approach. And it's not worked most of the time. So it's like, how do I assimilate? And then also, how do I change that habit to where it's like, I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong, but like, this is, this is what I'm thinking. So I think that's a habit for everyone to take away. But that's an interesting way to think about habits, is that it's not always what we do, but it's how we think as well. And
Hmm.
how we like interact with everything around us.
And I mean, I don't want to sound like it's just as easy as, flipping a switch or changing your mindset, but that is a big part of it. It really is because, if you don't really want to, let's say, get your laundry put away on a regular basis, more quickly, or, any of the habits that we talked about, at least for me, I can only speak for myself. I'll find excuses not to do it, which is why I
Oh
talk
yeah.
about being intentional, and then also, figuring out why I have such an aversion to that.
I want to say too that rewards, going back to that note a little bit, that the reward is not always going to be something that we're going to give ourselves, like, working out or being more mindful or all of that. That's a lot more, much more long-term goal. It's not something that you're going to accomplish or get a reward for in a week. Like the reward is losing weight, or it's having lower blood sugar, or it is feeling better about yourself, or getting better sleep. Like there are other ways that you're going to be rewarded by the things you're doing. Being more mindful, you're going to have more bandwidth, and you're going to probably feel less stress. There's all these things that are gonna reward you in ways that are not about you going out to get a massage, or you going out for dinner or whatever. So I think that's part of it as well. And I don't think it's just health goals. I think there are other goals that you could have, that you might get a reward as a side effect of the new habit you're building.
And I could think of two things actually off the top of my head. A new habit that my husband and we're still trying to get into the rhythm is I empty the dishwasher in the morning, and then he loads the dishwasher at night. And if the reward is having a clean kitchen and a clean sink and not having dirty dishes piled up. And that's something that I have to, consciously and intentionally, okay, I'm going to, get up, drink my coffee, take my medicine, unload the dishwasher, just like
Yeah.
anything else. And then the second one is I used to watch TV all the time. Like I didn't do anything else. I didn't really have any other hobbies. And part of that was because I went through a very long period of depression and I didn't really want to do anything. But at some point, I thought, I could take all this time that I'm using to watch TV and I can put it toward learning a skill. And so I bought an online course, and I didn't even realize that that was something that I would enjoy. And so I received multiple certifications
Mm.
instead of watching TV. And so that to me was a reward. Um, and it's something that I continue to do. I mean, I still watch TV, I still really enjoy it. And sometimes I just have it on in the background, but I don't, it's not as, I guess, wasteful, as it
Yeah.
was before. Like now I'm using that time for something that actually benefits me.
Yeah, there's a couple things for my I don't know if they're really habits or skills, or I don't know if those things are, they're probably interconnected, I imagine, but um I was really interested in photography whenever I was in high school, and I took this like film photography class when I was 18, and I was super interested and I just kind of got hooked, and I was just enamored by photography, and especially film photography because it's so involved. But a few years had gone by since I took that course, and I was like, I'm still interested in that. I want to do that. So like I bought myself like $100 camera or something like that, and I used that camera for a long time, 5 or 6 years, and I just every time I had a chance, I would take photos just because I was, super interested in that. And then, fast forward, I ended up finally buying myself a really nice camera like last year, and it was sort of it was a birthday present, and it was also a reward because I felt like I had done so much reading and research and learning and practice towards being a photographer. How do you take a good
Mhm.
photo? What are the elements of all of the photo stuff? And for me, I felt like it was a reward to do that after doing it for 10 or 15 years or something like that. Um, and I don't know if that's a habit, but I think that there's no way to build a new skill unless you have a habit of
Right.
continually, you know, practicing and going back. And like learning languages is another example of like you have to build a habit to study every day for however
Hmm.
long, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, like whatever you can work in your schedule and however much, brain power you have to dedicate towards that. But language for sure is a habit that you have to build if you want to be successful in speaking it.
Yeah.
And
And the
so it
same
just
with,
it takes a repetition.
learning a new musical instrument. We talked about
Yes.
in a previous episode about, you practicing the drums regularly. And,
Uh-huh.
I have a keyboard sitting here and I want to learn to play it, and I'll take it out and I'll do it 1 or 2 days. And then, so that's just not something that I've made a priority and I haven't really been intentional about.
Yeah. So I mean, I think regardless of what habit you're trying to build, I think that a identifying what the habit is you want to build or change or remove. We haven't talked very much about removing habits, but whatever those things are, I think identifying what those things are and approaching them on a micro scale and not trying to accomplish them in like a very short time, and giving yourself a little bit of permission to not be perfect at it and to struggle
Hmm.
and to maybe not really like it that much, because it's going to take time. It takes the practice. So I think regardless of what you're doing, I think all of those things are really important to consider, and that anyone can change their habits, anyone can start a new habit, but you have to have the dedication and the willpower to really continue to show up and to keep on working towards that goal. And life is a journey. Like it's not a
Hmm.
destination. And so every piece of our life, every day, every second, all adds up to the kind of person that we want to be. And so, what are the things that we're going to do today that's going to change the course for tomorrow and next week and the year? And where do we want to be in a year and 5 years? And I think that's a very popular, like, oh, well, what do you want to do in 5 years or whatever? But like, take that seriously and think about where are the places that I want to be in 5 years. What are the things? What kind of person do I want to be in 5 years? And taking that and thinking about what can I do today to start that change? What are the skills I need to start learning? What are the books I need to start reading? what are maybe I need a new job, whatever it is. Everyone knows the answer for themselves, but no one's going to start it for you and no one's going to make you do it. We all have to decide for ourselves that today I'm changing the way I think about myself or this piece of my life, and I'm going to change it. And that's the most important thing, that we have the power to make our own change. And every day that we make that concerted effort and that decision is a step in the direction of where we want to be in the future in 2 years or 5 years. So keep pushing forward, stay consistent, be patient, and the power to change your habits and transform your life is totally in your hands, and it's not for anyone else to decide. Thank you so much for listening to this episode about habits and the things that we can do to change the habits in our life. If you want to listen and follow, you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and all the places that you normally listen to podcasts. So we will see you next time.